Right.
And we're back.
Part two.
So that was quite funny because we just started rambling on about calories and realised the camera wasn't
We
going.
should save it for the video.
Yep.
The reason we're doing these kind of setups
exactly
is to
why we're
record
doing
that. Right. Okay, so what we wanted to do for this next part is continue on with a couple of benefits, and then hopefully in the same little section we'll talk about pitfalls.
Yeah.
And then also hopefully just getting a little bit about like some rough tips.
Like how to do it so that you watch this and then you're like, okay, so I feel like this might be a good option for me.
Yep.
Um,
and to do it like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
a few more benefits that we kind of have is, again, it's about the education, and it teaches you, kind of mentioned earlier, about portion sizing, which is crazy because you may think, like, I think a lot of people probably know it, but when you buy something from the shop and you're like, oh, I'm just going to have my portion of this. Your idea of how much a portion is compared to the branded, that food's idea of what the portion size is, are two very different things. So sometimes you can pick up like maybe a small bar or something, and it'd be like, you're like, oh, well, obviously the portion size of the bar, and then scan it, enter it into MyFitnessPal, and then it's like, oh, I'm having the bar, but actually it's like half the bar as a portion size.
Yeah.
So you're like,
double it up.
Snap, it's
Now
double
it's
that.
the calories.
Like ready meals, like it's often like a quarter of a pack or half a pack. The pizza is always half a pack.
Like you'll pick something up, it might say on there in really small writing like serves 4, and you're like, this doesn't serve 4.
Yeah,
like
often you'll see that, and also and then you realise how many calories in that portion. You're like, okay, that's why it's an issue. And I just want to jump on this now. Is like, we'll get to the problems in a minute, but I feel like a big reason why people don't want to track is because it's like, oh, I don't want to see the numbers, and I don't want to be over obsessing over the numbers, and it's this whole like fear of like, it's a kind of naivety in a sense. Like we'll get into the problems with tracking it, and I'll openly say how using numbers can be an issue, but
it's not for everyone. Again, we understand that it's not for everyone.
But the thing I want to make clear is like, it's this naivety about like ignoring the problem and like, oh, I don't want to track and don't want to think, because you don't want to see what's going on and what you're actually putting in. And just because you're ignoring the numbers of how much you're putting in doesn't mean your body's ignoring how much you're putting in. Because like, you could be like, oh yeah, but I don't want to see the numbers and stuff. Your body sees the numbers and it sees the calories coming in, and that's why you put on weight and you get into that situation. So just wanted to touch on that, like a little mini rant about like being naive to stuff. We know that the fact that it's not going to be for everyone, it's not an easy strategy, let's say.
And we'll touch on that in a bit.
Ignoring it and not doing it just because you don't want to see the numbers coming in is like kind of being like, oh, already you realise there, okay, yeah, I know there's an issue because I don't want to see it because I know I'm overeating it with it. So
just because you're not seeing the numbers going in, or you don't know the numbers going in, doesn't mean they're not the numbers going in. And I'll touch on that later on with some of the potential problems I've seen with the clients I've got tracking. Another reason why we love it is, as a coach, for me, whether this is distance coaching or working with clients that I actually see one-to-one, the more data I have as a coach to see about what you're doing all the time, the easier it is for me to help you. Like, so that's one of the reasons I say you don't have to do the tracking plan, but this is one of the reasons why I prefer it, is because I find it way easier to help you out. Like, if I know exactly how many calories you're eating and how many grams of protein you're getting, and you're not getting to where you want to be, it's way easier for me to know where we're falling short, where we need to make adjustments. Oh wait, every Thursday you have a massive blowout. Okay, well that's cool. Like, if you weren't tracking, we wouldn't necessarily see that. And obviously you can track way more like hunger levels and stuff like that. So the more stuff we have as a coach, the easier our job is to help you and get you to where you want to be. That's why I quite like getting clients to do the tracking type. But obviously, as we said, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, and also a big one on that is, if you're not tracking accurately, suddenly that we have that one thing that we're relying on for data, especially if it's distance coaching, like online based stuff, and we're using that as a main tool, it goes from being a pro because we have data to straight away being a con because that data is a load of rubbish and it's not true, and that's the only thing we're going off. So we'll get to that in a minute. But again, you can see how it's
and
not
it's easy
one
to...
clear guide like, oh, track, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
No way is it that. No way, not even close.
No.
The other little pro that we want to touch on is just the fact that along the same lines of the portion sizing, it just allows you to see the calories in the foods you actually eat. So again, it's about what you take in and what you're eating, but it allows you to see those specific calories for the foods you eat. Like, it doesn't make you just suddenly see something that you'll never have in your diet once you finish it. It enables you to see what you actually are eating and kind of doing, because no matter what plan I get people on, I always start them 2 weeks tracking, because then it's an education process. So not even if I don't go on to use tracking afterwards, I will for sure get them to track at the start because of the portion sizing thing, and also seeing the calories in the foods they actually eat. Also, it's no good just being like, oh, that's cool, there's this many calories in that food, but I don't really like it and I'm never going to eat it. Yeah. You need to know the calories in the foods you're putting in your body, because that's what the body's using.
If you have a food that you like and you can't live without, it is helpful knowing how many calories are in that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's good. I feel like another one is the nutrient timing.
Right, it died on us suddenly there. Yeah. That's handy. So 3 parts, yeah. Okay, so we just said nutrient timing stuff. So essentially, same with, you can fit the foods in that you like. You can now fit it around when you want to eat those foods, because when your meal timing for weight loss is very, very unimportant.
No, and it's the overall calories that matter. Yeah. If you don't like eating breakfast, don't have breakfast. If you like eating late at night, then eat late at night, but you track it.
That's it. So it just fits around. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
You just have it when you want. You don't have to be like... So that's where that... So we've been saying about like drastic diets and where they just cut out a food group, and then you've got to learn how to reintegrate that when you try and maintain some of those habits to maintain the weight loss. Same with the timing. If you make a drastic change to when you're eating your foods, like I'm not allowed to eat in this window, how to reintegrate that when you're like, okay, I finished my diet and now I just eat in that window.
Whenever I want.
So then you put on the weight back because you go back to your habit of eating that window, but not eating that window is what caused the weight loss. So you need to figure out a way of reintegrating it. So that's where tracking can be cool, because you can fit it around when you're wanting to eat.
Tracking is about you doing you, but getting to where you want to be.
I think that's a pretty good summary of the pros.
For sure.
Let's tackle some big old reasons why it might not work. And I want to go straight in with the first one. And a lot of people that recommend tracking, like we say about the flexibility, will be like, oh, it's just flexible. All you have to do is track your food. That comment, all you have to do is track all your food. That is not easy. Tracking every single thing you eat and everything you drink. Christ, that's not easy.
For
that's very
people,
rigid.
That's a big
that's hard.
lifestyle change. Is like, especially if you're busy. Like, I don't really see being busy as an excuse, but it does make it harder to track food. So it's a big lifestyle change. Being able to write down or put into an app everything that you consume. Yeah. Especially if some people, like if you're busy, touching on something a little bit different, if they're sort of not being mindful of what they're eating, then it makes them realise like, oh crap, this is how much I eat. So yeah, that is a potential downfall, is that actually it is quite
it's hard. Like, so if you're going into
initially I'd say
but
once
also,
you make it part of your lifestyle, it does get a little bit easier.
It gets easier, but then it's also still really tough. Like, I don't think it's ever like, oh, this is nothing. And I think the people that say it's so easy have been tracking for years and years, so it's like nothing to them. Yeah. And they're probably also tracking like every macro, so they've got that extra level. But tracking all your foods is tough. It is super tough. So if you've tried tracking before, or if you go ahead and after this video you're like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot, but if after like 2 weeks you're like losing your mind because you're stressing out, like you can't do it, and it's just, and you end up just like, so it's like any diet, if you start doing it and then you just suddenly fall off the wagon because those behavior changes and lifestyle changes was unsustainable for you, guess what? Tracking is not the right fit for you, and that's 100% just like understandable.
There are other methods out there,
and there are also other ways to track your food and like make little changes. So just because you're not tracking it through the app, you could be tracking it based on portion sizes of like hand sizes, like have one hand size of protein with each meal, like write that down versus it. But it's just important to realize that we view tracking as a strong method, but I'd also say I only view tracking as a strong method when working with when I'm working with a client, because I think to give it and just kind of let people crack on, a lot of the errors kind of get amplified, that we'll touch on in a second. But when I'm working with the client, tracking through it, I can help negate some of those issues, and I can also tell them how to draw back certain things. Like I'll be like, okay, now you don't need to worry about putting this in. Let's not do this, but let's keep this as the core things we track. Like let's just keep tracking those big ticket items. But I can work with the client, so it helps minimize those effects. But by itself, those effects can be a lot worse. And
making
harder.
The changes, like we touched on earlier about changing the calories during the week to lower and the weekend higher. Like that mindset of having a coach to change it as you go is really helpful, because otherwise this guy, if he was to just go off willy-nilly and start tracking, he's going to be like, crap, I go over my calories every weekend, and then it's just like a spiraling effect of feeling crap about yourself, and then of inevitably going off the diet, you know. So
I think the biggest weakness with tracking is tracking.
I would
say the second one,
inaccuracy.
That is a big one, but in terms of like sticking to it and doing it or getting people to do it, let's go with inaccuracy. Like the big one as well is, so when you're tracking, you've got to enter in the food and how much of it you had to get the right calories. So let's assume that you have weighed it out and you've chosen the right food. And then you're entering into MyFitnessPal and it gives you this calorie number. Straight off the bat, one, the calories on the packet of food may not be accurate. And also the actual data within MyFitnessPal could be off. So let's say you're putting in a food and it says 300 calories, but in fact it's like 400 calories. If that happens with like 3 foods that you have in a day, that's already a 300 calorie difference, and it could be blind. So first of all, there's error in the actual app, even if you're tracking it perfectly yourself. And then it comes down to the other error being user error.
Just putting in things willy-nilly, like guessing sizes. And the other day, I was chatting to one of my clients, and they were talking about making foods fit their calorie allowance, and that just doesn't work. So I'm using a jacket potato as an example because that's what he did. He had the jacket potato and put in jacket potato and looked for the lowest calorie option and clicked that one. But that, by clicking the lowest calorie option on there, doesn't change. Like what I was saying is, what the app tells you doesn't change the amount of food you're putting into the body. Just because the numbers look all fine on your app, that doesn't change what you're consuming. So you can't put in, I'm having the jacket potato from this shop because it's only 80 calories, whereas from that one is 160. That just doesn't work. It's the one that you're eating. So so that's crazy.
And then it's also missing foods out. So this is actually, let's just say these things are conscious errors. So things that you're fully aware of that you're doing wrong. So
although he didn't see that as an error initially,
but like it's something they're purposely searching out for. The other thing people will do is just not enter food. Like it'll be like a naughty food, and they'll be like, "No, I'm just not going to enter it in." Or like earlier in the day, they're like, "Oh no, that probably doesn't matter for anything." Just because you're ignoring it and you're not entering it into MyFitnessPal, again, it doesn't mean it's not entered your body. So the biggest thing I say for someone to do this is you've just got to be really brutally honest with yourself. And that relates to that first error, like the first problem with tracking, and the fact that you have to be so on it with everything. That's what makes it hard, and that's why tracking might not be the right plan for you. So yes, we can be like, oh no, make sure you're honest and make sure you're on it. That can make it hard, so write it down if you forget. that's what can make tracking so hard and make it not the right fit for you. So that's a big thing for that.
Another one, just touching on
within measurement error.
Yeah. Is not tracking drinks, right? So I had someone who was hitting her calorie allowance every day but not getting results, and then I was like, well, tell me everything you're tracking. She told me everything she was tracking. I said, there's no drinks in there. Do you drink anything other than water? And she was like, oh yeah. So I have 2 lattes a day, and then I'm not one to judge, but by the way, a coffee doesn't count as a coffee if it's got loads of cream and syrups and all that rubbish in it, by the way. But that's not about tracking. But yeah, she would have one of those jazzed up coffees with loads of syrup and cream and stuff in it. And I looked it up. There was more calories in the 2 coffees that she was having a week as a treat with one of her friends than a cheeseburger at McDonald's. And I was like, if you were going to McDonald's, would you track that cheeseburger? And she was like, oh my god, yeah, I wouldn't like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, but there's more calories in the drinks you're having. So that's an extreme example, but make sure if you're having a cup of tea, put the milk in. Make sure you're tracking the calories you're getting in from everything you're drinking. Your body's still getting those calories.
Free. Nothing is free, and that again is why it can be so hard. So again, to emphasize, like, these are things that people can slip up on, but that's what makes tracking hard, so it doesn't fit.
That is also then again why it could be a positive, because it is an educating process.
Yeah,
like now she's like, like I drink quite a lot of my calories. Like she learned that in order to lose weight, maybe that was one of the easiest things for her to cut out.
And again, that's why even though if we change what you do tracking, 2 weeks to track, that's why we always start with that, because there's something you're probably going to learn about what you're eating that'll help, even if you don't track in the actual plan. I think most people can track for 2 weeks. And also, there is the point that, yes, it's hard work, but at the same time, any weight loss plan is going to have some sort of work. And tracking does get easier as you go. Like, I think it's kind of like a wave. It kind of starts off really hard because you've got to enter in everything and get in the habit of doing it. So it's a big old lifestyle change to have to do that. Then as you've got all your foods in there, it gets a little bit easier and you get into the routine. But then as you go through time, it's like, it's just so much harder to have to do it like every day. Like imagine having to track every day for the rest of your life. Like that's not sustainable.
But that's why.
52.
Yeah.
Right.
999.
Not messing around. Okay. Well, basically, we're just summarising that last bit. What we said before the camera died was the fact that every diet's going to be hard, so find one like
that works.
Just kind of realise that it might be hard, but
dieting in general isn't easy.
Right, the last negative or pitfall of tracking, which is a big one, is the focus on the numbers. So, what can happen is, obviously, we talk about calories. You have to have a deficit. But if someone this is why, I know I'm going back and forward a lot, but this is why I said I think tracking so much stronger working with a coach than by yourself, because when you set it up and you set your calorie goal, number one, people set it far too low.
Yeah.
And also through the process, people just keep going low and lower and low and low, and like it becomes that obsession about getting the calories as low as they can. And that isn't ideal. And also, if you find that you're kind of an obsessive person already and very food focused, like very on it like that kind of thing, it might not be great for you because it's just tying into that, and it can create some bad relationships with food because all you're seeing it for is the numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why I think tracking by itself without a coach is probably not the best method personally, because and I mean that in a sense of without any other kind of formal background going into it, you just go, right.
You need to understand the
calories,
mindset behind it all as well.
Yeah, mindset and a lot of information about how to do it through it. Tracking can be like a really vicious plan for that, because it's just like, it's just doomed for unsustainability, because all they're doing is just, right, set myself out, deficit, lower, keep going lower. You're going to fail. You're going to fail. No, you're just going to push it to the point where you fail. Yeah. Like, it's just doomed to fail from that point. So, a big drawback of tracking is the fact that number becomes like a focus, and it's almost like a goal and an accomplishment to hit. Oh, right, I'm going to get under. And also it can create really bad relationships when you go over it by a little bit. Like, that's why working with a coach can help, because when you say, oh, I've gone over it, we can be like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you're by yourself and you go over it, and like MyFitnessPal, the number like goes red as well, and I know colours and stuff, and like all those small cues, like, oh, shit, like, crap, I'm bad. Like, I've done this bad. I've like gone and messed up. And if you've got like a rigid mindset, you'll be like, oh, well, I failed my diet there. Exactly. Like, I failed it. I'm done. So
and it's just
no point trying. I'm just gonna eat whatever I want. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. So
that's a big one. Then that's why having a coach is helpful.
Yeah.
Like, that's then pros and cons of a completely different thing.
But then if we're saying this for people to go out, and if they're doing it by themselves, they need to be aware of it.
It is fine.
Well, we recommend get a coach anyway, because if you really do, like, we're not being biased by that, but if you really do care about what you want, like, if you want a good freaking extension built on your house, you hire a good builder. You don't necessarily try and butcher one yourself.
100%, I do it myself. I'm joking.
Squaggly old walls.
There would be some dodgy walls.
We are professionals in what we do. Yeah. This is what we do. This is what we know about. That's why we have our job. If we didn't have, like, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't a purpose. So I think in terms of just random advice to give out on YouTube, like, or on Instagram, just be aware that you don't let the numbers become the focus.
Yeah, it's being aware of the downfalls of it for sure.
So that's some strengths. Negatives, obviously, it's super hard to do potentially for some. Like, all the errors within measuring it. Like, there's so many tracking errors.
Even if you're doing it accurately as well.
Yeah, there's just going to be error.
So let's talk about how to actually
let's go step by step
if you want to.
A little bit of a rough guideline. So obviously be aware of all the things we've talked about. I would really think about educating yourself on nutrition before going into it is the biggest factor. But step one, super simple. Obviously, download a tracking app. We kind of say MyFitnessPal because it's got a bigger database. And buy yourself a set of digital scales.
Scales make a hell of a difference. I was trying to track before having scales, and they made it so much easier. Yeah.
Then what you've got to do is you've got to figure out what number of calories can I actually have in a day. Yep. And for that, we generally recommend just doing 22 times your body weight in kilos.
Yeah, in kilos.
Not pounds. And then you times it by an activity multiplier. So that can be like 1.3 if you're very you're fairly inactive. And then like 1.6 if you're very, very active, like day to day, very busy, and also training more than like 5 times a week.
This is like the majority of your time. How you spend the majority of your time, would you say you're active?
Yeah. That will give you a maintenance. So 22 times your body weight times by 1.3 to 1.6. Yeah. That will give you a maintenance calories. And then what you got to go ahead and do is create a deficit. Max 500 below that. Yeah. Do not lower that number by more than 500. So let's say that I did 22 times my body weight times 1.4 because I'm like fairly inactive. I get that number, let's say it's 2,000. I will not go lower than 1,500 in a day. That's random numbers, but do not go lower than that. Yeah. Then what's really important is track your weight. We recommend tracking your weight every day. Yeah, that's a whole different topic for another podcast.
We could chat for days.
Yes, we'll do a separate talk on tracking weight and tracking numbers like that. Calculate a weekly average because of the fluctuations in day-to-day weight, and then see how those calorie numbers affected you over like a 2-week span. Yeah. So I'd give it 2 weeks to see how it's doing. If you are basically maintaining and haven't lost anything at that point, then potentially just knock it by 100 calories. Go from there. If you have lost a good amount, and that's fine, keep going. But it may be a case that just basically playing it by ear. But that's basically how to set it out.
Yeah, I was going to say that's how you set up most diets anyway, see how it's going. So
then some tips for doing it. Number one, big one, track in advance. Don't track after the fact.
Track ahead of time.
Your body, like, if you've eaten all these foods and then you're tracking on, like, in the evening of that day, if you've suddenly blown your calories by 1,000, what are you meant to do about that? But if you've done it at the start of the day, if you're tracking in the evening, track in the evening before the day. So if I'm in Monday evening, don't track for Monday, track for Tuesday. Yeah. And then get in the habit of doing that, because then you figure it out what you can and can't have.
And so chatting to some of my clients is that if they're doing it in the evening after their day of eating, they're not tracking accurately. It's what then becomes one of those downfalls is they're putting, I had a tuna pasta salad for lunch. Oh, how much pasta did I have? 100 grams. Yeah. It's like, well, no, you didn't. It could have been under. It could have been under. It could have been over. So that's when that element of human error comes into it.
Yeah. Other thing is if you're using, like, let's say you buy a pack of chicken, like cooked chicken, and you've got packet weight of like 500 grams. If you plan on using that over 2 days, just enter in 250 grams.
Yeah.
Even if you use slightly less on the first day, and then you just finish the pack on the next day,
yeah,
it'll balance out over those 2 days. But that's providing that you know you're going to finish the pack, and you can just enter it in like that. So it's a tip to be like,
over those 2 days,
I know I'm going to eat this pack over these like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I will just do just say it's half now and half after. If I have slightly more or slightly less, it's fine. And that just means that it's another element that you don't necessarily have to weigh out every.
It's just a tip to make it easier.
For that. And then another tip in terms of like actually weighing stuff on the scales is instead of whapping your like the thing that you're taking something from. So let's say
you have just told me this one, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a different way for the rest, like forever. But yeah.
If you have like a tub of peanut butter and you put it on there, and let's say it weighs like 281 grams, so like a really annoying number, and let's say that you want to have 28 grams. I know it's being particular, but instead of trying to figure out the mental mass of that, if you put the peanut butter on the scales and then click 0 it, so it goes to 0, and then you just take out until it's got minus 28. So it's just a little bit easier to make life faster, so you don't have to like track to everything.
So that sounds really nice and easy. Let me just tell you what I was doing. I was putting the peanut butter on, getting the number, putting peanut butter in I was using it in my oats, and then putting it back on and then subtracting that number and then getting a number from it. Yeah. So that's how I was doing it. But the minus number would be way easier. So definitely listen to that tip.
Make sure your scales actually do that though. Because that's a big thing. And then just kind of going through the process, but really understanding that it's not for everyone. Use fundamental principles about mindset stuff, have the right attitude. Really recommend getting yourself in the right place before you do any plan anyway. But that's tracking. We're running out of time again, so I'm going to make this a quick wrap up. We shall see you in the next video. It's
Hit
good
the
to be back.
Button,
Join the team, all the normal stuff. Bye bye. Let's see you later.